Hello everyone, it's Annie and I'm here today finally with my June reading wrap up. I read 28 books in June and yeah, that was too much. That's why this wrap up is late, but I read a ton of LGBT books this month because it was Pride Month, of course, and I read so many great new books. I cannot wait to tell you about them, so let's go. Okay, so let's get started. I am starting off with the 3 stars, no DNFs, no 1 stars, no 2 stars. Very excited about that. So this month was all pretty good books. So yeah, I'm very excited. First, I want to start off with I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. This is a YA contemporary about a non-binary main character, and they are at the beginning, they're kicked out of their home for coming out, and that was very difficult to read. So definitely be mindful of that if that's something you're going to be sensitive to. What I really liked about this book was the fact that it portrays going to therapy in a really realistic way. And I know that that's something that people kind of want to see more of, like LGBT characters in therapy in books, and this book definitely does it really, really well. This book had really interesting familial relationships. The main character's older sister actually ends up taking care of them, and I really liked that. And I really loved the love interest as well. He was just such a sweetie pie, like the definition of a cinnamon roll. Very, very cute. It just wasn't for me, like the subject matter. If I was a teenager reading this, obviously it's for young adults, it's not for adults. So I definitely understand why I didn't give it 5 stars, but it's just my taste. It felt like the trauma was a little bit heavy-handed, but it's definitely relevant still. But I really liked it. I don't know if I'm even making sense right now, but I hope I am. I did really like it, so I recommend it. Next, we have a graphic novel, The Girl from the Sea by Molly Ostertag, and I liked this. I wanted to like it more. I think that there were some things that happened. There was an outing at one point, like a forced outing of the main character that I felt like was very much glossed over, and there were not enough consequences for the character that did that, and that kind of bothered me. It was also very insta-lovey. So the story is that the main character goes to the sea and she falls in love with this Selkie girl, and it's very insta-lovey, which I didn't really love. But the art was cute, the story was cute overall, just those things just didn't work for me. And then a book that I read while shelving at my library is Crazy Plant Lady by Isabel Serna, and this is a super short, like cute illustrated book about caring for houseplants. Like, it's just cute, and I like houseplants, so I just figured I'd read it. The illustrations were what caught my eye, and it was cute, but you know, I didn't need to read it, so a 3 is fine. And then we have the book that we read for Found in Translation in June, which is Notes of a Crocodile, which is a queer cult classic translated. It was originally written in Taiwan, and I don't know how I feel about it. I did a live show with it with Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages, so if you want to hear our thoughts, definitely check that out. But my consensus around this book is that I definitely appreciate that it exists, and I like the idea that it is a lesbian cult classic written in the 1980s from Taiwan. I think that's awesome, but it didn't add anything to my life that I read it, if that makes sense. And then we have Boys from the Mish, also known as Ready When You Are, for its US release. This is about 2 Aboriginal boys in Australia. I believe it's set in Australia, and it's a YA contemporary romance, and it deals a lot with internalized homophobia. There's also a lot of drinking and like more adult situations than a lot of YA contemporary books usually have. I wasn't sure about whether I liked or not, but that's okay. It just wasn't my thing. I did not like the writing style whatsoever. That was really my biggest problem with the book, but I think it was really interesting and I'm glad that I read it. It's just that the writing style really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know, it wasn't my style at all. Okay, so I only have one 3.5 and it is Love and Other Disasters, which I really liked. It was really sweet and cute and spicy. This I got from Book of the Month, and it features a non-binary protagonist with POV chapters, which is awesome. Their name is London, and then there is Delilah over here, and they meet on this cooking show, like competition, kind of like Chopped, after Delilah got divorced. And London's whole deal is that they are like the first out non-binary contestant on this show, and I love their relationship. I thought they had really, really good chemistry, and I actually really liked like the whole cooking show storyline. I really liked that. The only thing was, you know, romance novels always have to have like the third act breakup or second act breakup, whatever it's called, and I just think that that was dumb. Like, there was absolutely no reason, no rational reason why these two should have had any problem with each other. I feel like it was just kind of fabricated to have tension in the plot, and it just did not work for me at all. Like, it had me rolling my eyes and like, when is this gonna end so they can just like be adults and talk and resolve their problems? Like, that kind of annoyed me a lot. So I wanted to rate this 4, but it actually annoyed me so much that I'm rating it 3.5. But yeah, it was really, really good, and I really love the two main characters, so I do recommend this. Actually, I lied. I have another 3.5, and it is Epically Earnest, which is a YA contemporary romance retelling of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. And I really liked this. It was just too short for the story that it needed to be telling. I loved the main character's story. She is adopted and she ends up becoming in contact with a relative, and that was done really well, I thought, but the romance side plot was not explored fully well enough. It really needed to be like 50 pages longer. 100 would have been even better. Like, it just needed room to breathe. I feel like things happened very quickly and the characters weren't given enough time and space to really react. That was just my feeling. I did really enjoy this. I love the cover, and I thought it was really cute, and it handled a sensitive situation really, really well, and I did love the sapphic rap. So yeah, I enjoyed this one, and it's a really quick read because it's so short, so definitely give it a go. Okay, and then we have a novella, which is Spear by Nicola Griffith, and this is an Arthurian legend retelling from a lesbian perspective, and it was so good. Very magical. I had the same problem that I did with Nicola Griffith's other book, which is Hild, which is not a novella. It's like 500 or 600 pages. In that I had no idea what was going on most of the time. Like, I really had no idea. It was easier with this one because I'm older now, and I read Hild when I was like 13, which I really should not have been doing, but it was still hard to follow. Her writing style is beautiful, very descriptive and flowery, but not in a bad way. In like a beautiful way. I really loved this book, and I think that if you're more familiar with the Arthurian legend than I am, you would love it even more. And then we have another book that is kind of inspired by the Arthurian legend, which is So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens, and again, someone put their whole design degree into this cover, and the back cover, just gorgeous illustrations. I love this. This is a cover buy, but it's amazing. F.T. Lukens is a great, great author. They're just amazing. I love this. The humor in this was really good. It was very funny, even though the stakes are pretty high. Basically, the story is that these guys and their party, kind of D&D-esque, go on this quest, and he accidentally becomes king of this kingdom. He doesn't want to be, but he is kind of roped into it magically, and he's bound to the throne, and he has to find someone to marry before he turns 18, otherwise he'll die. So the story is that he likes this guy, but he doesn't want to admit it, or like he doesn't think that he likes him back or something like that, you know. Classic misunderstanding trope in romance, but it was so good. It was really funny. I rated this 4 stars because while I did love the humor, I think it was a little bit much at times. And also some of these, like their other party members, were really interesting, but others I didn't like that much. So yeah, but you know, when you have an ensemble cast like that, that's bound to happen. So yeah, I really did enjoy this book though, and I'm definitely going to pick up F.T. Lucan's other works. Okay, so next we have Adrift in Starlight by Mindy Breyer, who I have followed on Twitter, and I'm so excited that I can finally read her book. It was so good. And this had amazing representation. It has 2 POVs, 2 main characters. One of them is asexual, and the other is, I think, gender fluid or non-binary. Their name is Ty, and I just loved their dynamic and their romance so much. I loved them, and I just loved the representation in there. This book had a lot going on. It was a little busy both plot-wise and world-building-wise, which is why it's a 4 instead of a 5 for me personally, but I just loved the creativity of it and the originality. It is found family as well, which I really liked, and there are a lot of different planets that they go to. There are interesting non-humanoid aliens. There are these interesting dragons that can teleport, which I wish was more of a focus because it was really interesting and it was just kind of glossed over. And there was space archaeology and space pirates and just really cool stuff. I really am definitely encourage everyone to read this because it was really good, and there's going to be a sequel out, I believe in October. I have to check on that, but I'm definitely going to be reading the sequel because it was just super enjoyable and a very quick read as well, like really fast-paced. Another book with asexual representation was Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is my first Alice Oseman book, actually, that I have read. I liked it. It didn't knock my socks off like I thought it would, but I definitely understand the hype. I didn't like the main character, which is why this isn't a 5-star. I think that she made a lot of mistakes that she just should have known better not to do. Like, she uses her best friend, like she knows his feelings for her and she uses him, and I kind of felt like that wasn't so great. And there were just a lot of melodrama, and this is YA, but they're also in the first year of university in this book, so I kind of expected it to be a little bit more mature. I would have liked it to be a little bit more realistic instead of melodramatic, but I definitely loved the exploration of identity in here, especially aromantic asexual, of course. I really love that. I think it was done extremely well. So if you want a book with a really interesting take on asexual and aromantic representation, definitely pick this up. It is worth the read. Another great YA contemporary is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I read Leah Johnson's sophomore novel, which was Rise to the Sun, and I also gave that 4 stars. I liked this one better. It's sapphic, of course, and this is about a girl who is running to be a prom queen in order to win a scholarship to afford going to the college that she wants to go to. And one of her rival prom queen nominees she falls in love with, and it's really good. I loved this book. I really loved that she has other things going on in her life besides the prom queen thing. Her brother has sickle cell anemia, and that is a big part of the book, and I thought it was done extremely well. Like, it was so good. I loved that part, and I actually wish this was a tiny bit longer so that and her whole family dynamic was explored more. But as it is, I'm so glad I read this. It was awesome. And then we have Flip the Script by Lila Lee, which I loved so much. And I also got pre-order goodies. So I got this signed book plate and these amazing postcards. it's great. Yeah, I really liked this. The premise is that there is this girl who is becoming an actress, and she gets a lead role in a K-drama, and she has this rivalry with her best friend who was also in acting school, and that best friend comes onto her show as the second female lead, and then they're rivals, but they might also fall in love with each other. It was really good, really, really sweet. I loved the romance between these two main characters. There was also a side character who I really loved. I loved the representation in here, and I loved that it was a happy ending, and it explored homophobia in Korean culture really well. I just think that I would have loved, this book is quite short, I would have loved for it to just have 20 or 30 pages in the beginning, because we start off with the main character and her rival slash ex-best friend in a fight, and they haven't been talking since she got the big part on this new drama. And I just wish we had known them while they were friends, and then actually seen the fallout on the page of when their friendship ended, so that I feel like we would have been a little bit more invested in their whole relationship arc. I think that would have been amazing, and if it was pulled off right, it would have definitely made this book 5 stars. But other than that, it was super sweet, super cute, super fun. Highly recommend. So next is Godslayers, which is the sequel to Gearbreakers by Zoe Hanamikta. This is a duology. First of all, this cover, love it. Yeah, this was an awesome sequel. I had kind of the same problem with it as I did Gearbreakers, because Zoe Hanamikta's writing style is not my taste at all. It's hard for me personally to read. Her sentences are very short and kind of like jagged, if that makes sense to anyone else, which is hard for me to read, but a lot of other people seem to really like it. But besides her writing style, I really love the story. I really like the ending, and I love these two, of course. I love the sapphic relationship and the huge robots. I mean, you can't get any better than this. So if you haven't read Gearbreakers yet, do it. And then we have Unconquerable Sun by Kate Elliott, which I really liked. This is a gay Alexander the Great retelling in space. Yeah, so that's awesome. I really, really liked this. The thing wrong with it that didn't make it 5 stars for me was it was a little bit too long. And it, it was a little bit confusing too, now that I think about it. There were a lot of POVs, and sometimes it was hard for me to remember which was which. But I really did like it. If you're interested in Alexander the Great at all, absolutely pick this up. There's going to be a sequel, which I love the cover of, and I'm definitely going to be picking that up as well because I want to know what happens. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of world building in here that was very interesting. There was just this weird, almost American Idol-esque show that they were on, like, throughout the story that kind of didn't make too much sense to me, and I kind of wish that had been cut out. Because that, I don't know, I feel like it cheapened it a little bit, like it wasn't as serious as it could have been, but that's just my personal opinion. I really did enjoy this book, and I'm definitely going to read the sequel. So now we have Sophie and the Bone Song by Adrienne Tooley, which is her sophomore novel, and I loved this so much. It has amazing magic. The magic system in here is spectacularly creative, just amazing. Sophie's father is a musique who is like part of the musicians guild in the kingdom, and he has this lyre made out of bone, and it is a magical lyre. And Sophie thinks she's going to take her father's place as musique, but in the tryouts she gets kind of ousted by this random girl who just shows up one day and with no training or anything wins the tryout, and she becomes the musique instead, and that is her love interest. That is my only complaint with this book, because the magic system is glorious. The setting and the world building is amazing. It's set in like this wintry, snowy world, and it's just beautiful, beautifully described and everything. I felt like I was really there. but the love interest herself was so boring. I didn't feel like she had any personality. Sophie had a ton of personality, very complex character, very well written character, but the love interest was just so one-dimensional. I really wish that she had more of a personality to kind of complement Sophie's. That was my only complaint. Otherwise, this book absolutely would have been 5 stars. Everything else about it was phenomenal. The next 4-star book was The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimons, which I really loved. It was super heartwarming, a romantic YA contemporary about a young trans boy who is moving schools because of a mishap, and he wants to kind of be stealth. He doesn't want to be out as trans at his new school, but he also wants to be on the soccer team. So he goes and joins the soccer team and things are going great, but then a new law is passed saying that he can't participate because of the F on his birth certificate. So it's just kind of heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. I really loved the main character and his family, but his love interest and his family was a little bit, not that I didn't like it or that it wasn't realistic, but it just wasn't my favorite thing. Like, it was that his family is super religious and like scary religious, and they're very against the LGBT community and stuff like that, so that was hard to read. I think it was an interesting addition to the story. I'm not sure how I felt about it and how it was resolved at the end, but I think it was a really good book, and I know a lot of people love it, gave it 5 stars. I really liked it, and I thought it was definitely an important read, and I'm very glad that I read it. So going on to the 4.5 stars, I have one, and now that I'm thinking about it, it might be more of a 5-star. This is Bluebird by C.L. Pierlot or Pierlot. I really loved this. This is a sapphic sci-fi and it's amazing. It has massive Cowboy Bebop vibes, and it's about lesbian gunslingers in space, and it is just amazing. It has kind of a dual timeline thing that meets up at the end and is just genius. It's really, really action-packed and like keeps you on your toes. The world building is also really interesting, and there's also a really cool librarian, which is awesome, and I just really loved it. The story follows Rig, who is a gunslinger, outlaw, and thief. She and her ship, Bluebird, have spent years keeping a single step ahead of the galaxy's factions, which are ascetic, ossuary, and pyrite, who are like, I don't know, the overlords, and like everyone has to be part of one, but Rig herself is not. She's like a rebel. But Pyrite has Rig's sister, like they kidnapped her, and Rig has something they want in exchange. So if she doesn't hand it over, her sister dies. So Rig has to go on this journey to rescue her sister from this faction, and she meets a really interesting character named Ginka along the way. And I really, really love both of these characters so much. There's a really great romance in there as well, and it's just really good. So I highly, highly recommend this. I haven't been seeing this get a lot of hype, and it definitely should be. Okay, so next I have a collection of 3 poetry collections that I rated all 5 stars. They were all amazing, so I'm just going to put them all together here. First, we have Inheritance by Elizabeth Acevedo, and then we have The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman, and then we have Say Her Name by Zeta Elliott. I loved all of these. I read them when I was shelving the poetry books in my library because I had a little bit of downtime, and they caught my eye because Inheritance and Say Her Name both had really beautiful illustrations as well. And The Hill We Climb, of course, I listened to Amanda Gorman read it at the inauguration, but I wanted to read it for myself, and they were all phenomenal, and I highly recommend you pick these poetry books up because they just have a lot of important things to say about queer women and BIPOC women especially, so I highly recommend you pick all of these up. And then we have a children's picture book, which I never read, but this one specifically caught my eye when I was shelving. It is called Mama and Mommy and Me in the Middle, and it is by Nina LaCour, one of my favorite authors. And of course I had to read this because of the title and the absolutely gorgeous illustrations throughout the whole book. Just pick it up. It's so heartwarming. It's really, really cute. The illustration style is just beautiful. And I'm really glad that I took, 5 minutes to read it. It was just such a beautiful little book. Next, we have I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, which I rated 5 stars. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and just look how beautiful it is. I'm so happy with it. I love this book. It was the first book I read in June, actually, and it was so much fun. This is Casey McQuiston's YA debut. It is a mystery slash contemporary with a little bit of romance in there. It is so good. It gave me major Twin Peaks vibes, although not in the way you might think. Like, it's not dark in that sense. There is a lot of talk about homophobia and like dealing with the Bible Belt, because this takes place in Alabama. So there's a lot of interesting talk about homosexuality and fundamentalist Christianity in the United States, and that I found absolutely fascinating. And it reminded me of Autobiography, which is a book about the LDS Church, following 2 gay boys in Utah, and that was really awesome too. I recommend that. But this one was amazing. I love the exploration of that subject. It was handled in a really sensitive way, and I just loved the characters. Casey McQuiston's voice is just unmatched. She manages to make things so funny that like I actually laugh out loud, and it is so good. Maybe they use they pronouns. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. But I love this book. It was one of my favorites this month, absolutely. And if you're looking for just like a really fast-paced, fun read, definitely check this out. The story is that Shara Wheeler is like the most popular girl in this school, and she goes missing one day, and this girl that she kissed has to go on like this wild goose chase to find her, and like she has to find clues that Shara Wheeler left in these pink envelopes. It's so good. It was so much fun. Another 5-star is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is her adult debut, I believe, and I read this for the Hot Girl Book Club with Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages, and definitely check out our live show discussion that's going to happen, or may have already happened by the time I get this up. This was an amazing book. It was a little bit slow at times, but just the sheer creativity of it. It was sapphic, and I loved the main character. There were a lot of difficult things to read. There was a lot of child abuse. There is a storyline involving cancer and death of a parent. It was very hard to read at times, so definitely check content warnings, but it was really, really good. And it's about this mass dragoning that happened, or supposedly like within the universe of the book, that happened in the 1950s, where all these women suddenly spontaneously turned into dragons and flew away and abandoned their husbands who didn't treat them right and things like that. It was really, really good. I loved how it was written, because it was written like it was a historical fiction book, not a fantasy book, if that makes sense. Like, it was written as if this event really happened in the 1950s, and there were like scholarly papers dispersed throughout the chapters about the mass dragoning, and it was just so creative. I really loved it. I just think it was a little bit slow, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then a book I love so much I had to go out and buy it is The Final Strife by Sarah El Arifi. This was an amazing first book in a new high fantasy trilogy inspired by African and Arabian cultures, and look at how thick this is. It was really long, but it was worth it. It follows a really interesting character. She is kind of like a chosen one who has missed her chance at being the chosen one and fulfilling the prophecy. And it's just such an interesting dynamic that she has with all the other characters. The world building in this and the magic system was phenomenal. I loved it so much. It's kind of like a blood magic, because there are 3 colors of blood in this book, in this world. There is red, blue, and clear, and the red people are like the elite, the blue people are kind of like in the middle, and the clear blood is like slaves basically. And it was so interesting. I just loved everything about this. It was way too long to really go into detail, but I loved the sapphic relationship in this. It was quite slow burn, but I cannot wait to read the sequel to this, because the reveal at the end was quite surprising. Kind of left us on a little bit of a cliffhanger. I just loved this. I loved everything about it. And I am not one who loves high fantasy books. I like them, but I've kind of been getting tired of them a little bit. But this is really what a fantasy should be. Like, this is just amazing. It's impeccably crafted. You can feel the time and effort and love that the author put into creating this world and the characters in every word that you read. You really can. It's just a spectacular book. So another one of my absolute favorite books that I read this month was a graphic novel, and it is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wong. And this was just magical from start to finish. First of all, I loved the art style so much. A lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes with graphic novels, I don't love the art style, which makes it hard to read, because that's kind of the point, even if I like the story. But this art style was so beautiful and fit the story really, really well. And it's a pretty simple story, but definitely groundbreaking. This prince, who is not specifically said, but there's evidence that they are gender fluid or non-binary, and they at night go around dressed in dresses, and nobody knows, and they meet this dressmaker who they hire to make their dresses for them, and they fall in love. And it is just such an amazing story about identity and acceptance, and I loved it so much. It was great. I'm so glad I read it. My favorite book this month was a little bit of a surprise. It is This Poison Heart. I loved it so much that I went and found the Owl Crate edition online secondhand, and it is signed by the author, and just I love the colors of this special edition. It is amazingly original. This story is just so beautiful. It has like cottagecore witchy vibes while also being related to Greek mythology. I did read the second one in July. I'm filming this in July. That's also really good, but this one was amazing. Just god tier book. Absolutely fantastic. Bree is the main character. She is adopted by her 2 moms, which I love the adoption rep in here as well. And it was just amazing. She is a person who can make plants and flowers grow just spontaneously, and she seems to be immune to any poisonous flowers as well, like poison ivy or anything like that. And she is trying to figure out these powers, and her parents run the little flower shop, and it's so cute. I love the contemporary fantasy vibes of this, and I love Bree as a character. The only thing was there's a bit of an insta-love thing in here, but it's sapphic, so like I give it a pass because I really like it. And yeah, so basically she is going about her life, and one day this mysterious woman comes up to her and says, hey, your birth mother left you this house in upstate New York and you get to live there now. And she's like, what? So they go, and like things happen, and it kind of related to her powers and finding herself, and it's just amazing. You all need to read this. Like, it's amazing. I love it. So thank you so much for watching my June wrap up. I'm so happy with all the books I read this month and all of the great LGBT books I got to read. I was so excited, and I read a lot of new favorites, so that's like always exciting. Definitely comment down below what your favorite book you read in June was, especially if it's LGBT. I'm really excited to get more recommendations from you guys. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!